A really wonderful, warm way of being, and her keen intellect, empathy, and capacity for listening to strengthen our democracy one conversation at a time. Her book, The Joy of Talking Politics with Strangers, is a labor of love based on years of experience in phone banking, canvassing, and ballot curing with thousands of voters in California's Central Valley and beyond. That was my trusted guidebook during the last election cycle. I'm grateful for it. Elizabeth has trained more than 2,500 volunteers in workshops focused on phone banking for introverts, engaging those who say they don't vote, and that's today's topic, and using Spanish in our work. Elizabeth has developed a way to talk with voters that builds bridges where there once were walls, allowing for real and transformative conversations. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and a warm welcome from all of us.
Thank you so much, Carol. I'm really honored to be here with all of you today. And before we get started, I'd just like to invite everyone to take a moment to acknowledge how much is going on in our country right now and our world. The ICE courthouse arrests, the conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine, the gutting of our safety net that's going to hurt so many people across the country, and so much more. I just invite you to pause for a moment to acknowledge all of that and to reconnect with why the work that all of you are doing is so very important. Well, thank you for being here today and for channeling your energy into doing something to address these huge challenges that face us. A quick overview. I will talk about the importance of connecting with people who rarely or never vote. I'll share some strategies for turning I don't vote into the start, not the end of a conversation. And then we'll demonstrate a few interactions, give you a chance to practice, and wrap up. Afterwards, we hope that some of you can stick around for an optional question and answer period. If you haven't had a chance to print out the handout that we sent in advance, now would be a great time to do that. It will be helpful for the practice sessions. So I'd like to start with some context. You may remember back in 2017 when Shelley Simons, a Democratic candidate for the Virginia House of Delegates, was tied with her Republican opponent after a recount. The State Board of Elections basically had to do a coin toss to decide the result. And not only did the Republican win the coin toss, but that meant the Republicans maintained control of the House of Delegates, all because the Democrats fell short by one vote. And we also know how close the 2020 presidential elections were when less than 43,000 voters in Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin decided the outcome of the Electoral College. In that election, 34% of eligible voters did not cast a ballot. Eligible voters is determined from census data and includes citizens age 18 or older who aren't barred from voting because of past felony convictions, depending on the laws in their state. Many of these are young people, people of color, and lower income voters, people who may be inclined to support Democratic priorities. Of course, some of these people had their votes suppressed. Others just need help navigating logistics, like confirming their polling location or how to request an absentee ballot. But there is some portion of this group that is flat out not interested in voting. People who rarely or never vote are often labeled low propensity voters. But I like a term used by Amat Shenker Osorio, a Democratic communication strategist. She calls them high potential voters. It focuses on their strength and their power. If we could encourage even a fraction of these high potential voters to get out and vote, it could have a big impact. So when I'm phone banking or canvassing, at least one time each shift, I talk to someone who tells me, I'm not voting. Some scripts say to just thank them and say goodbye. But this is a wasted opportunity. We need these voters. Some people try preaching at them. They recite all the talking points and tell them all the reasons why this election is so crucial. That usually doesn't work very well. People don't like being lectured, especially by a complete stranger. There's another way to engage these folks, and it's been highly effective in my conversations with voters. It requires me to shift gears and to slow down. I try to get curious. Can I view the voter like an anthropologist would? Show empathy and be non judgmental. Listen more than you talk, especially at the beginning. Ask open ended questions, then silently count to 10 to give them a chance to respond. It's challenging, but this approach can make the conversation more effective and satisfying for the voter and for you. Let me tell you about one of these high potential voters. In December 2020, I was calling Georgia for the Senate runoffs on behalf of Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. I spoke with a voter I'll call Ophelia. She was really stressed out and didn't know there was another election in January. She said, I don't have time to think about politics and I just try to tune them out. She couldn't even remember the name of the president, but she said she didn't like Trump. She described how hard things were with her mother, who had lots of health issues. Even though Ophelia got laid off during the pandemic and her unemployment had run out, she still helped her mom financially. This went on for 25 minutes, and I wondered if I was wasting my time. But she really wanted to talk. I said I was so sorry to hear about her situation and that I'd also had a sick parent, and I knew how hard that could be. Then Ophelia asked if I was a Democrat, and I said yes. And she said she leaned that way too, but she hadn't voted in the presidential election. I said, oh, interesting. Tell me more about that. She said, I figured Trump was going to win again. So what was the point? I said, I'm really glad Biden will be our next president, but it was a really close election, and it showed that we needed every voter. I said it would be tragic if Biden can't get anything done because the Republicans still control the Senate. In the latest pandemic relief bill, the Democrats wanted to include money for things like extended unemployment benefits, but the Republicans refused. But if the Democrats win these two Senate seats in Georgia next week and gain control of the Senate, we can help people who really need it during the pandemic. I'm wondering, what do you think of that? Something clicked for Ophelia. She said, okay, that's it. I'm going to go vote. I'm going to make sure my family does too. I said, wow, Ophelia, that's great. Could you spread the word to 3 people you know? She said, yeah, my husband works in construction. He's got 100 coworkers. Most of them didn't vote in November either, but we'll tell them that now that we have a new president, we want to make sure he can get things done. We're Hispanic and we're going to get this going. We'll tell them, get out the vote, get out and vote, and then come to the cookout. I said, wow, you are really connected to the community. You and the people you know could decide the outcome of the runoffs. I asked if I could send her information about early voting and text her a reminder on election day. She said, sure. So afterwards, I texted her, and this is what she wrote back. God works in mysterious ways. You made my day. Yes, I will take all my friends to the polls. I can literally imagine the poll workers' faces when we walk in. Unfortunately, I don't have a loudspeaker. I would go around town announcing it. Ha ha ha. That's just one example of how eliciting a voter's concerns, trying to respond from the heart, and connecting what they care about with what's at stake in this election can help them draw their own conclusions about voting. So there are several touchstones that help me navigate a conversation with voters like Ophelia, who start off saying, I don't vote. The first is that I'm aiming for conversations that are relational, not transactional. Instead of talking like a fast talking auctioneer or a prosecutor trying to pin down a defendant, I try to take a relaxed conversational approach to the conversation. I try to slow down and take my time. It's way more important to be effective than to be efficient. The next touchstone is empathy. Rather than labeling Ophelia as ignorant or low information, I tried to see things from her point of view. She started the conversation saying she was really stressed out from taking care of her mom. I try to assume that everyone's doing the best they can, and they often have a lot on their plate. Even though the elections might be my number one priority, in her world, caring for her ailing mother probably took up all her energy. So I can express the spirit of empathy by acknowledging what they share with me with phrases like, that sounds really, fill in the blank. That sounds really hard. That sounds really sad. Oh, that sounds exhausting. Or I could say, it sounds like fill in the blank. It sounds like you're really busy taking care of your mom. It sounds like you've got a lot on your plate. It sounds like you wonder if one vote makes a difference. The third touchstone is 80% them, 20% me. I try to listen more than I talk, especially at the beginning of a conversation. One magic phrase that works in almost any situation is, tell me more about that. And then I try to count to 10 silently to give them a chance to respond. So if they say, I don't vote, or I haven't voted since Trump was elected, try saying, tell me more about that. Try to use a tone that conveys friendly, non judgmental curiosity. I also try to ask open ended questions, those that can't be answered with a yes or a no. If they say, all politicians are crooks, I could say, if a candidate who really cared about the community got elected, what would be different in a year? Or if they say, my vote doesn't matter, I could say, if you could change two or three things about the country, what would they be? Not only does this help build empathy and earn respect, but it also allows me to gather intel about their priorities. When I'm phone banking, I jot down a few notes about what they tell me so I can refer back to it later in the conversation. When Ophelia told me about getting laid off, having her unemployment run out, and helping her mom with the bills, these were invaluable clues about what might be important to her. Later on in the 20% me part of the conversation, I looped back to some of these topics and I cherry picked a few juicy tidbits from the candidate's platform that directly related to the things she cared most about. So, all these touchstones help me elicit something called change talk. That's a term that comes from motivational interviewing, an approach developed by two clinical psychologists to help people address problems with addiction. But these tools can be helpful in supporting any type of behavior change, like encouraging people to think about voting. Change talk involves listening for any crumbs the voter shares about why they might want to change or what they wish were different about themselves or the world. When Ophelia said she didn't like Trump, I asked her to tell me more about that. When she said things were hard after her unemployment ran out, I asked how that affected her life. Sometimes you have to listen really hard to hear these bits of change talk. They may say nine negative things about why voting doesn't matter, but then they'll mention one little thing, like how they wish healthcare were more affordable, or how they're angry that Roe v. Wade was overturned. Milk that. We're like mice who don't need someone to leave the pantry door wide open. If there's a little crack in the wall, they can squeeze themselves through it to get to the good stuff. That's what we want to do. It's like panning for gold. One of my activist friends, Charlie Varon, described it like this: we're on a mission to find the voters' hidden hopes and their buried yearnings. One last tip. There's a special question called the ruler that can be really helpful for assessing a voter's motivation level. You can say, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to vote? With 0 meaning very unlikely and 10 being very likely. If they say, a 2, then you could ask them, oh, well, why isn't that number a 0 or a 1? And they may share some interesting information about why they might be interested in voting. And then you could follow that up by saying, well, what might boost your 2 to a 3 or a 4? That could open the door for them to share things that could be helpful and having them take the next step towards voting. I used this a lot last fall, and it was highly effective. So, to help demonstrate all this, I'm wondering if someone from the audience who happens to have a copy of the handout available would be willing to role play with me. I can be the caller and you can be the voter. So, if you could just use the reactions tab and then click raise hand if you'd be willing to buddy up with me, I would be grateful. I could really use a friend up here. So, You're going to be the voter, so you can be the cranky voter. Oh, Janet. Fantastic. All right. Um, let's see. All right.
There we go. There we go.
Fantastic. All right. So you
Can
have
you
a
hear me?
handout? Yes, I can hear you great.
I
Um,
do. I
okay.
do.
So I will be the voter, and I'll start off kind of halfway, two-thirds down the handout. And then if you could just use a few of the responses in the left-hand side of the column at the bottom of page 1 and then on page 2. Um, and then I can model some responses that I might use. Does that make sense?
Okay, so I'm doing the phone bank. I'm calling you. Is that
Actually,
and
I'll
you're
be
the voter?
calling you. You're the voter
Okay.
who doesn't want to vote. Sound good?
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
All right. All right. Ring, 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 ring.
Hello.
Hi, may I speak with Janet, please?
Who is this?
Oh, hi. My name is Elizabeth Chur, and I'm a volunteer with Abigail Spanberger. I'm not calling to ask for money. This is just a quick check-in about the upcoming Virginia elections. And
Well, I don't like talking politics.
oh,
To
I
straight.
hear you. I
I
hear
really do.
you. I actually don't love talking politics either, but this election is so important that I'm going out of my comfort zone to talk with people. I'm wondering, I just was wondering, Abigail Spanberger, who's running for governor, has asked us to reach out to every voter in Virginia to
Mhm.
ask if you could change 2 or 3 things about the country, what would they be?
Oh God, I haven't voted in years, so I don't even follow politics now. I mean, as far as changes, um, prices are going up on everything, and it's just really hard to keep up with that. I'm on a fixed income, so I don't have a lot of money to spend on the high prices of food and other things.
That sounds really hard. Tell me about how you make ends meet. It sounds like it's pretty tough with the way that prices are going through the roof right now.
Well, I have to be careful what I buy. Some things I just do without. And even with electricity and paying those bills, it's really tough. So I have to make choices what I can have and what I can't. And that's really difficult.
That is really tough. I'm sorry to hear that. I know a lot of folks are in that position. Tell me how would your life be different maybe if prices were maybe the way they were, maybe 5 or 10 years ago? How would your life be different?
Oh, I think it would be much better. Yes, I would have more options. I could do more things. I wouldn't have to scrape by every month.
Yeah, what are some of the things you'd like to do if maybe you had a few more dollars in your pocket at the end of the month?
Travel is
Ooh,
something I like to do. And, just going out to lunch with friends or things like that, doing more social events, that type of thing. So I'm limited with my funds in doing that.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you worked hard for those funds, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
many years. Yeah.
And you deserve to really be able to enjoy these sort of simple pleasures of life, rather than
Yes.
having to watch every single penny.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Wow. Well,
so where do we go from here?
yeah. Well, thanks so much for sharing that with me. I'm just wondering if I might be able to share just a little bit about. I know you said you don't really love talking about politics, but this is actually beyond politics. It's really just about kind of the bread and butter things you talked about, kind of what's at
Mhm.
stake in this election. I wonder if I might be able to share some things with you about that.
Sure, sure.
So I'm going to just have a timeout on the conversation. Janet, thank you. You were awesome.
Okay.
You deserve an Oscar nomination for that. So
Thank you. Thank you.
the purpose of this demo is not to necessarily get into all the talking points,
Right. Mhm.
but just to show like how you might be able to navigate an initial like skeptical voter and take them from I don't vote to get them to talking about. And I'm just
Okay.
wondering if briefly, Janet, you could just mention like what was that experience like for you? As I know you're just acting, but
Um, it's hard to say. I mean, it is nice to have somebody who is just calmly talking about things, and not someone who is trying to push their views on me and what I should be doing or shouldn't be doing as far as politics. So,
Yeah. Great. Oh, I think you're muted now. Um, but it sounds like, yes.
yeah, it was a friendly voice,
Yeah.
a
Ah,
friend. Yeah, you're just the way you talked, and you weren't telling me what I should or shouldn't do, that type of thing. So, yeah,
great.
I think that
Wow.
makes a difference. And not being rushed. You were not rushing at all. And I know when I make phone calls, I feel like I have to rush through it. And I don't really take a deep breath and then just continue or listen to them as much. So
Yeah.
that's good to do, good to learn.
Well,
Mhm.
great. Well, thank you for stepping up there, being brave and being able to help
All
me.
right.
So I really
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
it.
This is
Um,
great. Thanks.
give it a big round of applause to Jan for participating. So I'm wondering if there might be two other folks in the audience that might be willing to help us demonstrate. This time, one of you will be the caller, one of you the voter, and then I can stand on the sidelines and offer some help or suggestions if you need them. Oh, Michelle, wonderful. And do we have a buddy for Michelle? Anybody else that would be willing to help us demonstrate? You don't have to be perfect. This is actually just a great learning experience, so we would be grateful. Uh, and this is such a friendly group. It's a great way to just test things out before actually talking to real voters. So don't be shy. We will be very grateful to you. All right, there's 63 people on this call. I'm sure there's one other person in here who might be willing to um, jump in there. Oh, is it Aaliyah? Is that right? Yes, thank you for volunteering. Fantastic. All right, so
Sorry, I was muted. It's Alia.
oh, Alia. Okay, sorry about that. All right. So would one of you be willing to start off being the caller?
I don't care which role I have,
Okay,
whatever.
how about Michelle? Why don't you start as the caller, and then Alia, you will be the voter, kind of like Janet was in the last round. And then Michelle, is it okay if I see like maybe an opportunity to comment on something to just pause the conversation?
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
great.
Okay,
So take it away. You're calling Alia.
okay. Using the same script that you used before?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, okay. All right. Ding-a-ling-a-ling, ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Hello.
Yes, hi. Is this Alia? I'm Michelle, and I'm a volunteer with Abigail Spamberger. I'm not calling to ask for money, but I'm just checking in with you about the Virginia elections in November.
Ugh, I don't vote. I don't vote.
Oh, dear. Yeah, that's hard for me to hear. I always find that really hard to hear.
Actually,
Could you?
can I pause for just one
Sure.
second? So, I mean, although I also find it hard to hear, I feel like that my tone might come across a little bit judgmental, you know?
Yes, you're right. You're right. I was kind of like in a blank space, so I didn't
Yeah.
know what to
No, this is good
say.
because this is real life. So, maybe could you just rewind it and try to bring kind of a non-judgmental, just friendly curiosity rather than kind of how this is
I'm
affecting
looking
you.
at your cheat sheet. What do you say when they say I don't vote?
You could say, "Tell me more about that." Oh, tell me
Oh,
more
okay.
about that. Yeah.
All right.
So, can we
Okay.
rewind? Alia
Yeah,
has just said,
let's go back to the starting point, okay?
okay.
Is that okay with you? All
Yep.
right. Ding-a-ling-a-ling, ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Hello.
Yes, hi. Is this Alia? It's Michelle. I'm a volunteer with the Abigail Spamberger campaign. I'm not calling to ask you for money, but Abigail, who's running for governor, has asked us to speak to voters about what's on their minds, what's important to you.
I'm really busy and I don't vote.
Oh, wow. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I don't think my vote makes a darn bit of difference.
Oh, dear. Well, if
Things,
you could speak to Abigail directly, what would you want her to know about what concerns you and what keeps you up at night?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think that things ever change. You know, one politician is the same as another.
It sounds like you really want people with integrity to hold office. It's important to you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, yeah, that's important to me too. So what would you want Abigail, to know about what keeps you up at night? What's important to you?
Oh, well, I have an elderly mother. She's on Medicare, and she she can't always afford to get the medicine that she needs because
Oh, I
she
hear.
also has to pay for groceries.
Yeah, wow, I hear you. Being a caregiver is a full-time job, a big emotional um, thing that you carry around with you all the time. Yeah. What would make it easier for you to care for your mother?
Well, I could sure use a break sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes some communities have like elder care, respite care. People go in and help others. Yeah, that is hard.
Can we just pause for
Um,
1 second?
sure.
So you're doing awesome, Michelle. This is so great. You're asking open-ended questions. You're having a relaxed tone. I'm wondering if maybe you could just dig a little deeper, ask some follow-up questions. And, Alia has said, I could use some respite care. Maybe ask her how that would help her, what she would do with the time off, how it would, just try to get a little more, get her talking
Yeah.
about that.
Okay.
So can we?
Elliot, what would you do if you had a little bit of a break from caring for your mother? What kinds of things interest you?
Well, I hardly ever see any of my friends anymore because I
Hmm.
have to take care of my mother all the time. I'm afraid to
Yeah.
leave her.
Yeah. So friendship and being part of a community, that's important.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And you and your friends, what would make your community better?
Well, we don't have any parks nearby where like
Hmm.
I would like to go for walks with the friends, but we live
Right.
inner city and
Hmm.
uh, it
Well,
we don't
parks, that,
feel safe even going out
yeah.
for walks.
Yeah. Well, parks, recreational facilities, that is some. So it sounds like that might be something you'd want to consider when you look at who's running to represent you, is what they think, what they would do for recreational activities, particularly for the folks who live in the cities.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the candidate you're calling about could do that or not.
I think she could, and I think she understands the value of fresh air and exercise and having. She also cares for, making this up, I don't know, cares for her parents, and so I think she knows what it's like to be part of that sandwich generation.
So I'm going to just pause you. You both did so great. I wish we could go on for another 10 minutes on this conversation, but um, and thank you so much both for participating in that. I think part of the most important thing, the hardest thing in these conversations I found is getting over that initial hump, like that first minute. And once you get people talking, sometimes they're just like this font of information. But navigating that first part is really challenging. Michelle, you did an incredible job. Alia, thank you so much. It was so believable. I feel like, is that actually happening to you right now? I feel like,
Well, I do have a 95-year-old mother.
wow. So, yeah. Well, thank you both so much for participating. It really is just helpful to see this in real time. So, thank you both.
You're welcome.
All
You're welcome.
right. Well, so now we'd like to give all of you a chance to try this out in groups of 2 to 3 people. And many people tell us this is the most valuable part of the training. So I encourage you to stick around and participate. I invite you to take turns in the role of caller, voter, and if you have a third person in your group as the observer, we'll prompt you to switch roles every 4 minutes so you can try out each of these roles, and you'll have 12 minutes total. So this sample script on your handout uses Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic candidate for governor in Virginia, as our sample candidate, but feel free to substitute in your own favorite candidate if you have one. Also, there's no need to be an expert on Abigail Spanberger's policies or anyone else's, and we definitely don't expect you to get through the entire conversation. Just like the models you saw, the focus of this practice is just starting a conversation when somebody says, I don't vote, and then using empathy and non-judgmental curiosity to make a connection with the voter and draw out their concerns. So on page 1 of your handout, about 2/3 of the way down on the script, you'll see where you start with, hello, may I speak with Carol, please, or whoever the voter's name is. And then the voter, like they did in the demos, can pick a few phrases from the left-hand column at the bottom of page 1 and then on page 2, and then the caller can respond using some sample phrases on the right-hand side of the page. Um, as the caller, there are also a list of handy all-purpose phrases in the middle of page 1 of the handout. So if you get stuck anywhere, you can refer to that and try using one of those. Also, if any of you don't happen to have the handout, don't worry about it. Just practice the conversations based on these demos that you just saw. It's kind of like real life and actual phone banking. There's always an element of improv. So when in doubt, you can always just say, tell me more about that. We'll have a short debrief when we reconvene, and then we'll wrap up and have time for optional Q&A. And if you end up by yourself in a breakout room or you're having technical issues, just come back to this main room by clicking leave breakout room, not leave meeting, but leave breakout room.
Welcome back, everyone. Looks like Elizabeth is back, so we'll spotlight her and let her lead us.
Great. Thank you. It was such a delight to be part of one of the breakout groups. And I'm wondering if you could put in the chat one thing that went well or something you learned from the breakout session. I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience since I didn't get to go to everybody's session. Anything you learned, something that went well? Don't take things personally. Warmth and empathy in the voice is key. Yes, that is so true. Empathy. Draw the conversation out of people. Sometimes we assume that people understand us. To be patient, wait for the voter's response. It gets easier after the first minute. Slow it down. Keep asking questions. Yeah. Yeah, it's really helpful when you stay calm no matter how frustrated and upset the caller, the voter is. Yes, let the voter talk. Yes, this is all great. Wow, this is awesome. Thank you so much for this feedback. Tell me more. Yes, my favorite phrase in the world. And then just if I could invite you to put something in the chat, anything that was challenging or any places where you got stuck, if you could just put that in the chat, I'd love to hear how that went. Any pain points? Blaming immigrants. At times I felt I was being intrusive. We were nervous. Yes, that's very normal for trying this out. Wondering if it's okay to fib a little to draw people out. Maybe we could talk about that in the Q&A. Keep questioning to draw the voter out. Yes, weren't sure how to segue from a good conversation to talking about what the candidate would do. We can talk about that in the Q&A too. Balancing, leaving space for the person to explain themselves and getting to your point. Yeah. Yes. Great. Well, thank you so much. This is awesome. This is fantastic feedback and learnings that I see. So, as I mentioned, we will have time for Q&A, so maybe we can loop back to some of these questions if you have time to stick around after we wrap up. But first, just a few things, and I would love to leave you with one more story at the end. Just a couple housekeeping things. We would love your feedback on this workshop. So we're going to drop a link in the chat for a 2-minute survey, and you'll also get this in the follow-up email. There's also one more workshop in this series, 2 weeks from today on July 31st, same time, same place. Workshop 3 will focus on how to have respectful, productive conversations with people who may have a different political party or perspective. And everyone's welcome to attend, even if they couldn't come to this workshop, so please spread the word. For more resources, videos, information about my book, The Joy of Talking Politics with Strangers, you can visit my website, elizabethchur.com, and we'll put a link in the chat. And you can also sign up for my Substack to find out about upcoming workshops and talks I'm doing in addition to the one I'm doing on July 31st. So I would like to leave you just with one last story. In 2020, I called Dallas for a Democratic candidate for state legislature, and I spoke with a 30-year-old, and I'll call Juan. He told me, "Oh, I'm not voting." I said, "Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that." He said he wasn't a political person, he'd never voted, and he wasn't going to vote this year either. I tried to stay curious and non-judgmental. This not voting thing is something I only read about in the paper, but here was a live person who could give me more insight into what goes into that decision. I asked whether his friends voted, and some of them did. They were all over the map from conservative to liberal. They all got along, but they didn't talk much about politics. I asked if he were in charge, what he would change about the country. He said everything was fine. He still had his job. His friends and family hadn't been affected by the pandemic. And I said I was glad to hear they were doing okay. And then, almost as an afterthought, he mentioned he wasn't wild about President Trump. My ears perked up. Oh, really? What don't you like about him? I don't like the way he talks about Mexicans. I said, yeah, he said some pretty intense things. It's possible Texas could flip blue this year. The presidential race is going to be really close, but if Texas went blue, that could decide the whole election. He still wasn't interested in voting, so I asked him, would it be okay to text you information about how to vote by mail? It might give you more options if you decided you did want to vote. And if you didn't want to vote, you could just throw your ballot away. He said, yeah, I could send him more information. I also asked if I could call him back in a few weeks to check in. He said, sure. I thanked him for his time. We had talked for over 20 minutes and said goodbye. I knew it was a long shot, but at least he hadn't hung up on me. On election day, I called him back. He picked up and he totally remembered me. I said, Juan, I'm so curious. Did you end up requesting an absentee ballot? And before I could even finish my sentence, he said, I already did it. I voted. And I almost fell out of my chair. He said, a couple Saturdays ago, my friend and we didn't have anything better to do. So we looked up the early voting place and it was 5 minutes away. We went there. There was no line. It took less than 10 minutes. And I voted for all Democrats, including that local candidate you told me about. I was blown away. I said, when we talked, you weren't interested in voting. What changed? And he said, honestly, our conversation got me thinking. I said, oh, really? What about it? He said, well, the fact that it went on for so long, other people had called before, but when I told them I wasn't going to vote, they just hung up. You seemed interested in my reasoning without trying to persuade me. You just asked questions and listened. Later, I was frustrated with the crazy things Trump was saying, and I told my friend, come on, let's do this. I said, that's amazing. What would you tell someone else who had never voted? He said, it's easy. It doesn't take a lot of time. I asked if he thought he'd vote again. He said, I guess so. Well, probably. Yeah, definitely, now that I know how it works. I could almost see his thought process evolving as he heard himself speak. This is our future. This is how things are going to change for the better, one voter at a time, one conversation at a time. Right now, we have a precious window of opportunity to up our game when engaging with at least one-third of the electorate, voters like Juan and Ophelia and the many other high potential voters like them. So many elections are decided by a handful of votes, especially in these state legislative races. We have an incredible chance to boost our turnout levels compared to previous elections. And until now, we've left a lot of votes on the table. But just think what we could accomplish if we had full participation in our democracy. So let's reach out to every single eligible voter in this year's elections. Let's engage the power of their hidden hopes and buried yearnings to transform our country together. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. I'm going to turn it back to Molly, and she has some important announcements to close us out, and then we'll have some time for Q&A afterwards. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for such a compelling, amazing workshop. And everybody, please sign up again if you haven't already to come on July 31st. I also want to thank everybody who helped lead these today, especially Carol Blaney, who coordinated a lot of this with Elizabeth, and Charlie and Graham and Brad for being awesome tech hosts. And thirdly, I want to thank all of you for coming and making this presentation such a worthwhile event, and especially for those who volunteered to step up on the stage and role play. So to close us out, Charlie's put some links in the chat. We're Commit to Democracy. We have 45 community hubs across the country. We postcard, we phone bank, we text, and we run workshops and town halls so that we can all up our skills and participate in our democracy even more. And please check out our website. If you want to sign up with us, you just go to our website and sign up, and you can be on our mailing list. We can send you a great newsletter. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for everybody here today. And now I'm going to turn it back